Hey, what up everybody? This is Stephen Breach coming to you here with a review of the Kliq Rules. Here, I just watched the Blu-ray here, anticipating UFC 190 tonight. Honestly, I was going to put off making this review, but honestly, the undercard to UFC 190 tonight is basically putting me a little bit to sleep. So, I thought I would just talk about the DVD documentary. Right now, I think as of right now, everybody's known that on the WWE Network, in order to push sales of the Kliq Rules to get you to go out and buy the Blu-ray or the DVD set, WWE Network has put up some really kick-ass cool specials. Monday night, after Monday Night Raw, they gave you a first look where they basically played the the first 30 minutes of the documentary in a little bit of a clip fashion. They didn't show you the whole thing, but that was really cool to see. That was like you need to get out and make sure you order this. After watching the first look is when I really got anticipated about getting the Kliq Rules thing. On Tuesday night, you came home. There was a special called the Kliq Behind the Curtain, where they talked about the wrestling business. It was the first time all five guys were in the same room at the same time. Basically, they were sitting down before Scott Hall's induction into the WWE Hall of Fame at WrestleMania 30. That was really fun. Then Wednesday night was an hour-and-a-half special of the best matches and moments of the Kliq. Those were selected off of the Blu-ray as well. And then Thursday night after SmackDown was Kevin Nash Too Sweet, a 30-minute documentary on the life and the career of Kevin Nash, Diesel. After watching all of those specials and then sitting down and watching the documentary, honestly, I feel like I already watched the documentary before getting the Blu-ray and putting it in today. A lot of the stuff was repeated. I know that when I watched my buddy Jim Nye's review yesterday, Jim Nye 888, he gave this review a thumbs down. He basically said that it just wasn't for him. He didn't think it was all that good. I want to say that I think the documentary was really, really good. But if you're not a DVD collector, if you're not a real documentary guy, I'm telling you that you can satisfy your needs by sitting down and watching the network with your $9.99 subscription and watching the 4 shows that I talked about. You will have seen enough that once the WWE finally uploads the Kliq Rules documentary to the Beyond the Ring section, whether it's a few months, it seems like the Paul Heyman and the Macho Man releases seems like it was about 4 to 5 months before they were put up on the network. But when documentaries come out like this, when Blu-ray DVD sets come out, I want to have them. I want to have them right away. I would have had this on DVD Tuesday if it would have been for my transmission still working in my truck. I was supposed to get my truck back today. But the transmission didn't come in time, so they told me that it'll be there on Monday. It says they don't work on Sundays. Son of a bitch. But the Beyond, I'm sorry, the Kliq Rules. I don't know why I was calling it the Beyond the Ring. But the documentary is set up into only a few chapters. Friends for Life, Forming a Bond, Strength in Numbers, The Kliq Only, The Curtain Call, Divide and Conquer, Excess Language, and Resurgence. Basically, they talk about how they came together and became friends. Scott Hall says that he met Shawn Michaels in 1985, and I don't know where they got this video footage from, but it's basically Scott Hall and Shawn Michaels walking up to each other and shaking hands in the middle of the street in 1985. They talk about how Scott Hall back then basically looked like a jacked up Magnum PI, and they showed him, and I had never thought about him as looking like Magnum PI, but once they put him on the screen with that permy hair and the mustache, back in the day, Scott Hall used to wrestle as sort of like a cowboy gimmick almost, and that's why it's so funny that he basically took over the Scarface gimmick. I'm sure a lot of people didn't even really know that those two guys were the same guy when Razor Ramon debuted in WWF. But basically, that's when Shawn and Scott became friends, and they ended up in the WWF together at the same time. And through that, basically, you know, Shawn Michaels was doing a gimmick where he was a really good wrestler, but he would always have a bodyguard on the outside. I believe at this point, Sid was no longer... I can't remember. I think Sid came before Diesel, but then I could be a little bit off. I'm not 100% sure. Now that I'm talking about it, I think Diesel was first, and then they brought in Sid to replace Diesel when Diesel and Shawn split and went their own separate ways. That might be the way it went down, because then Sid turns on Shawn after the WrestleMania, and that makes a whole lot more sense. So I apologize. I think I was wrong. Maybe Diesel came after Sherry. I'm a little bit weary on that, but basically how that became was Shawn Michaels was watching WCW Saturday Night, and there was a character on there called Vinny Vegas, who was Kevin Nash, who was sort of like a Vegas prankster, sort of a wise guy, maybe not Vegas, maybe more like, he had a little bit of Atlantic City in him, because he had like a New Jersey accent to him as well, and Kevin Nash liked him. I'm sorry, Shawn Michaels liked Kevin Nash. He didn't know him personally, but he thought that he had a big body. He thought that the persona that he came off on TV was pretty cool, and thought he would be a good guy. He went to Vince and said, this is the guy that we should get, even though he was under contract at WCW. Shawn Michaels says that a week later, he was walking him out to the ring on Monday Night Raw, making his debut. From there, the 1, 2, 3 Kid would come in, and he would work a program with Razor Ramon, where Razor Ramon would put him over, and that's how the 1, 2, 3 Kid became a star in the WWF, getting the win. It would also be what would turn Razor Ramon babyface. But they worked a program for a good amount of time, and because of that, they sort of took him into the Kliq, because Michaels, Razor Ramon, and Diesel, they sort of wanted a new guy in there, and they sort of wanted to give back and bring a youngster in to teach the fresh blood, how the wrestling business works and how they go from there. Then, watching WCW Saturday nights when they're out there on the road, they would fall in love with a guy named Terra Rising. Terra Rising on his own would come into WWF, and it wasn't right away, but soon there was a time when the Kliq and Triple H were at the airport at the same time. The Kliq already had a van, so they asked Triple H to come along. Triple H fit in, talking the wrestling business with these guys, and they just became friends. As the way they say it, with Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and Sean Waltman. Basically, when they found out that Triple H didn't drink, they just go, bing, we got us a designated driver. And so, that's how they became friends. And from there, if you look at the guys that are involved in this group, these are the guys that were having the best matches and the biggest angles that were in WWF at the time, minus Undertaker and Bret Hart. And they had a lot of pull in the WWF, not even the locker room, but more of like the Vince's office, I guess you can say. Shawn and Diesel were guys that had been WWF champion. Razor Ramon was a many-time IC champion. Sean Waltman was a workhorse that it didn't matter if you put him in there against another small guy or another big guy. He was going to be able to have a match that fit what they needed, whether if it was him getting pummeled or him having an upset sort of come from behind victory. Triple H was another guy in the Intercontinental Chase, just putting on great matches against Mark Marrow, Razor Ramon, all the guys that they would put him in there. Triple H was knocking it out of the park, having great matches with them. So, basically, what it all came down to is that basically they had their group, and there was other groups inside of the locker room, whether if it's the Undertaker's group with him, Rikishi, Godfather, the BSK, Bone Street Crew, where basically they were guys that played dominoes together, or the Hart Foundation, and a whole lot of cliques throughout the whole locker room, a lot like how it would become with Gang Wars in WWF around 1997. Just that's the way it was. These guys were friends in real life. So they were pretty much portrayed that way in the locker room, that they split each other up, and you know, guys would intermingle, but for the main part, everybody would sort of stay together in their own group, because you know, a lot of groups didn't like each other and they rubbed each other the wrong way, and it just, everybody was looking to get ahead. That's basically what the wrestling business was. But when it came down to the Kliq, what the Kliq was is a group that stayed together. It didn't matter if one guy was getting over, the other guys were going to congratulate him, and knowing that their time was coming sooner than later. I know that if you look at the WrestleMania 11 match, Diesel versus Shawn Michaels, that night, Shawn Michaels takes one of the worst jackknife power bombs at all time. Some people basically think that it was Shawn, you know, turning on Kevin Nash. Diesel, I've heard Kevin Nash talk about this in shoot interviews before, saying that basically maybe he did, just the way it looked. But it was Shawn's idea for him to take it again, so that way they could edit it and make it look better for VHS and you know, other ways of showing it on down the road. As of right now, the group stands at 5 members. 3 of the members have been added into the Hall of Fame. Triple H is a guy that honestly might not ever get a chance to go into the Hall of Fame because of where he stands inside of the company. I think that's pretty good for a group of guys. You know, one of the highlights of the group is that basically during one of the peaks in the wrestling business, basically 2 guys were in WCW, being the Outsiders, Kevin Nash and Scott Hall, and then the other guys were in WWE, you know, as in DX. And I remember that was always sort of the hope that someday, you know, we would see, you know, DX against NWO. It's the same way that everybody always had dream matches, that the 2 companies coming together one night and being able to put on one show, like a super show, whether if it's, you know, Ric Flair versus Hulk Hogan, whether if it's Sting versus Undertaker, you're always going to have, you know, these dream matches that you can put together of guys with like gimmicks or like styles, and just have dream matches along the way. You know, I guess you can say it never came to be, but I guess it did sort of happen at WrestleMania 31. But you know, the guys were so old, it didn't really matter. But you know, when they showed these guys at the Hall of Fames at WrestleMania 30, WrestleMania 31, WrestleMania 27, they seem like they're the old guys still trying to hang out in the school cafeteria, still trying to act cool. But the thing is that the people that are in those, you know, I guess you can say the catering, would be guys growing up watching these guys, that give these guys all the respect in the world, because basically they wouldn't be there. The Kliq got WWF through some of the darkest days they had ever been in, and basically I think that honestly it was the Kliq that really dug WWF out of the hole that they were in. Vince and the supporting characters that were around him, whether if it was Jim Cornette or whether if it was Brother Love, you know, they just had their feet stuck in the mud, and they weren't willing to get rid of the gimmicks, like Doink the Clown, you know, the as they put it, the firemen and the policemen and all the hokey gimmicks that were, you know, sinking them, making people, you know, embarrassed to watch pro wrestling and want to change the channel. It was the Kliq sitting Vince down and basically saying, moving forward from here, we need things that are real, like DX, like the NWO. So I respect the hell out of these guys. I think that honestly this is a very good documentary. You don't need to spend the money to see it. Wait and see this on the WWE Network, or watch the network selections that I talked about, and you'll feel like you watched this. Very, very good stuff, though. I wish I would have Kevin Nash Too Sweet. I wish I would have some way of getting that on DVD Blu-ray with some Kevin Nash matches, but maybe they'll make a bigger one somewhere down the line, expanding on what they've done, but we'll have to see. But Kliq Rules, great set of matches on here. Maybe you buy it just for that, but if not, just watch the network stuff, like I said.